Okay, I guess I'll get going now. So today I am presenting to you a scenario on universal safety technologies. Universal Safety Technologies is a provider of safety and security systems. They provide system design, installation, monitoring, and maintenance. They have 150 offices across 15 regions in the US and Canada, with 100,000 commercial customers with an average of 2 locations per customer. They have expected growth to be about 10% per year over the next 5 years. And currently they are struggling with systems that are not well integrated, and they want to create a more unified system using Salesforce. So the requirements are, make this a little bigger, sorry, that they want to replace the current CRM, which is used for capturing leads, orders, and for scheduling appointments. They want to replace the sales, installation, support, and maintenance functions in their 2 ERP systems. Since they're in both US and Canada, they will need to be multi-language and multi-currency. And I'm proposing a single org strategy. I didn't see any justification for going multi-org, such as data residency requirements, and everything fits well within system limits for single org. Some risks and assumptions. We're able to keep the order management processes within the 2 separate ERPs that are subject to the regulatory requirements that are mentioned further down in this scenario. Salesforce will be the system creating the orders, but the ERP will be the system of record for the actual sales orders and for the order management, actual order management. We're not going to use Salesforce as an order management system. Also, developers and integration resources will be available. That's another assumption I'm making. And they have unlimited budget, so we can maximize project success using the Salesforce Unlimited Edition. Risks are the rollout will be to all regions at the same time. They have geographically separate IT teams that will need to coordinate. They have ERP teams that tend to work autonomously. We will need to do data migrations for multiple systems and their dependencies upon an integration work stream. These are the actors and licenses that I've identified. There'll be system specialists. They are internal. I'm going to give them a Sales Cloud license. There's 3,000. They will need access to quotes, Tableau CRM, and their identity store will be Active Directory. There'll be support reps. They're also internal. Their license type will be support. I'm going to be giving them omni-channel, Service Cloud Voice, and their identity store will be Active Directory. They're also managers. They're also internal. Their license type will be sales, giving them also Tableau CRM and Active Directory. And then there's some external users that are contractors. I'm going to give them Customer Community Plus, 6,000. They'll be scheduled on appointments. They'll be able to view and edit customer data. Salesforce will be their identity store. There'll be customer contacts. They're external. There'll be Customer Community Plus. There's 200,000. They will need to be able to do delegated admin, run reports, and use social sign-on. And their secondary customer contacts. They are external, and I'm just going to give them Customer Community. And there's a larger volume of those, and they just need to be able to submit and track cases and use social sign-on. And this is the role hierarchy that I've come up with. So there's just the CEO that's at the top of the company, and then there's managers at the headquarters, and then there's also managers in each region in US and Canada. There's office managers, and then there's support reps and system specialists. And then the contractors, which are the external users. Next is system landscape. What I'm proposing is our systems and integrations. And Salesforce will be the main system that we're going to be using for orders and the initiation of orders and sales and service going forward. I'm proposing we'll have a customer community for the customers and then a partner community for the contractors. We'll have social sign-on, which will use OpenID Connect. We'll have a mobile app for the customer community that will be through Mobile Publisher. We'll also have the Salesforce One native mobile app. There's also a public website that will be used for showing some data where a report can be run, and also for a web to lead form to capture inquiries. I'm proposing to use Heroku as an archival strategy because I didn't see anything mentioned for a data warehouse or anything. So I think that Heroku would be a good option for some of the things we need to do as far as data archival and access to some external objects and data virtualization. So we'll use OData with the Heroku external objects, and we'll have a scheduler job in Heroku that will run and pull the data out of the Heroku Connect tables and push them to the archive tables, which will then be exposed as external objects. And then we'll use Heroku Connect with the bidirectional sync and the sync engine to pull data from Salesforce. We'll also use MuleSoft as our ASB. This will use the JWT Jotbear for security with Salesforce. Salesforce has a few integrations with MuleSoft. I've numbered the integrations on the landscape, which I'll go into more detail next. So we have some request reply, find and forget. We've got some bulk API and batch jobs, and we have some data migration going through the ETL. So I'm also proposing Identity Connect for single sign-on, since they already do have the simplest approach to giving them single sign-on using their Active Directory credentials into Salesforce. And this will allow for deep linking and an SP-initiated SEML flow, which is also mentioned in the scenario. They also have a few monitoring systems, so I'm assuming these are behind the firewall and they'll need to be accessed. And data will be sent from these systems to Salesforce using MuleSoft. There's also two ERPs. There's the US ERP and the Canadian ERP. Like it says in the scenario, these need to remain separate because of regulatory requirements. So we have a few integrations with them, and they are the sales order masters. And then we have the CRM, which we are going to be replacing. So we'll have some data migration strategies that will have to happen from the CRM to Salesforce. And these other systems do use single sign-on with Active Directory as well. So these are the integrations in more detail. The first one is Salesforce will be sending data to the ERP. Both ERPs using the ESB. The ESB will know which ERP to connect to using location information. So I'm suggesting find and forget platform event for sending sales order data to create sales orders in the ERP when the orders are created in Salesforce. We have the ERP to Salesforce. So this will go through MuleSoft. This is a daily ETL batch. I'm actually going to use MuleSoft for my ETL jobs as well. So I'll set up a daily ETL batch using the bulk API that's going to pull data from the ERP and send it to Salesforce. So there's a requirement that contractor records need to be created and updated in the ERP system and then sent to Salesforce. So that will be the point of creation for those records. We also have the ERP to Salesforce through the ESB. There'll be a remote call-in through the ESB. This is to send order status updates from the ERP to Salesforce, which is another requirement. The monitoring systems to Salesforce will make remote call-ins through the ESB. And it mentions that whenever a device is hooked up to a customer location, they would like a record to be created in Salesforce. So how I'm proposing that is we'll create asset records in Salesforce when events occur, and they're going to be related to the locations. The asset records, I'll get to that more. There's actually a large data volume consideration there. Also, we will need to create an invoice in the ERP when the installation is final. So this will be Salesforce through the ESP to the ERP. There'll be a fire forget platform event, which will send the data to the ERP system, and the invoice will then be created. This is when the status of the installation is finalized. There'll also be a Salesforce to ERP scheduled daily batch. This is going to be a daily batch job that will schedule the maintenance before scheduled maintenance, and it will create the service orders in the ERP when that maintenance becomes due. Also, there'll be Salesforce to ERP, fire and forget platform event. There'll be a service order created in the ERP when the scheduled maintenance is complete. So the one before that, it's going to create the service order. That's interesting. And then I'll have to go back to that requirement because I don't think we want to be creating 2 service orders. I think it might, I think that is actually different. Oh yes, this is that's when the okay, so the maintenance is complete and the other one is for scheduled maintenance. Well, no, I think those are the same sales orders, never mind. We have the monitoring system to Salesforce using a remote call-in through the ESB. So when an event occurs, we will create a case in Salesforce and relate the case to the asset record. And then Salesforce to the ERP with a message back from ERP. So this will be a request reply using Apex continuation, and this will happen if maintenance is needed. A maintenance work order creates a service order in the ERP, and the ER responds immediately with a success or failure to the user, and that's why we need to use a request reply call out pattern. I have a couple identity flows, OpenID Connect, SP initiated SAML. OpenID Connect is basically just the web server flow. This is how the social sign-on. The users using social sign-on will be authorized and logged into Salesforce using the community. And then here's the SP initiated SAML, which is how the SSO will happen for the users accessing deep links or signing into the network and being able to be automatically signed in to Salesforce. And Identity Connect can also do the automatic provisioning and deprovisioning of the users. So that's why I'm choosing that. So this is the data model that I'm proposing. I am using a lot of out-of-the-box standard objects. So I actually chose, and I went back and forth on this, I chose to use the Salesforce standard opportunity quote order objects. Really for the internal users, I didn't want to lose any of this quoting functionality because it mentions that estimates need to be created. So in order to create estimates and go back and forth with the customer and come up with a final estimate, I felt that using quotes was the best option for this. We didn't need to reinvent the wheel. And then when the quote is finalized, it turns into an order. And then we will create contracts for the customers because they will need to have scheduled maintenance. And I actually think I'm missing a lookup on this object here, my installation maintenance. I want to have a lookup to my contract object because this maintenance is going to be associated with a contract. So your contract can go for a year or 2 years or 3 years, however long they sell it for. And so we'll need to be keeping track of that and be billing them for the installation maintenance. So then we'll use products and price books for all the pricing to come up with the pricing for the orders. So also, since there can be primary and secondary customer contacts in the account, we use the account contact role object. We'll use leads since we're lead conversion process, since we're capturing leads through the website and through other channels. I also have a couple of external objects as well. So So I mentioned that I want to use asset for the monitoring system devices, and that, according to my calculation, is going to cause some issues. So it mentioned that their growth is going to be over 5 years. So there are 50 devices per location, so 100,000 customers. It mentioned there were 2 locations per customer, 50 devices per location, but it said up to in year 5, there would be about 100 devices per location. So I did a calculation of getting up to 32 million records, and even currently that would give us 10 million devices, but that growth is going to be pretty huge. So that's not anything we even want to keep on Salesforce. So there's margin volume consideration there. And then for cases, as the customer base grows, I believe it said that there was two cases per location. So per year, per month, I think it was. So my growth on my cases is going to be over 6 million. So that once it gets over that 5 million threshold is an LDV consideration. I'm just looking to see where that the number of cases it mentioned. Anyways, I'll go back to my data model now. So I have I have cases as being virtualized. So after like maybe 2 years, we'll push the cases off platform to Heroku, and we can expose those as an external object through our archival strategy. So I also have assets being virtualized into Heroku. So the assets would get created in Salesforce, but then be immediately pushed through Heroku Connect to this asset external object. So really this Salesforce out of the box asset object is really more like a staging area for these assets to be associated to the accounts. There's also multiple locations. So I'm actually using I'm using Lightning Scheduler. So some of the objects in work orders, and with the work orders and in Lightning Scheduler, you get location objects. Actually, I think you get location without Lightning Scheduler. Just enabling field service Lightning gives you access to some of these field service objects. So just to be clear, I'm not using field service, but I am going to take advantage of some of these objects that are being given to me since they already exist. So locations there, and there's a junction object called associated location that is between the account and the location. And each location will have an installation that will be a custom object. There's also some financial data that needs to be stored for each location. That's also a custom object. These are both lookups. And then there's installation maintenance that needs to be associated with each installation, and that's going to be set up by, I believe it was support. And then there's the customer quote. So this is how I'm exposing the customer estimate data to the customers and also to the contractors that are going to work on the installations. So since I wanted to use the internal quotes, the customer and Customer Community Plus don't have access to the quote object. So I'm just going to pull the data from the primary quote, and that way it's accessible to both the customer, the contractor, and the community. Then we also have some payment custom objects that will be installed with our payment app. It mentioned that they need to be able to take payments, so we'll use a payment gateway, something like Chargent, and it just will associate the payments with the account and then store a tokenized version, the tokenized card info for payment methods. These are my calculations for LAV. So going into the business requirements, the business process requirements, They mentioned customers can place a call to phone numbers, so they'll be directed to an available support rep. So I'm giving the support rep Service Cloud voice, and then we can use omni-channel with that, and mention basing it on their availability. So we can set that up with omni-channel. They want to submit a request on the website. That's the web to lead. And then a support representative will actually be notified, so we can use leads with omni-channel and routing based on their location. And we can assign to location-based queues with omni-channel. So since there's only about 5,000 customers per month, this is within the web to lead limit, so 500 per day. It came out to about 167 per day. So once the support representative pre-qualifies the prospective customer, which is going to be done using a custom questionnaire. So I propose we can create a guided screen flow with questions for pre-qualification, and once qualified, the lead conversion happens. So that's when they create the account contact opportunity, and then they'll start the estimate process through the quotes on the opportunity. And then they can schedule a service appointment from the opportunity, create a custom quick action for them to schedule the site visit right off of the opportunity, which will create the service appointment. So during the site visit, the system specialist will need to be able to do a bunch of stuff from their mobile app, such as take pictures and videos and upload them for reference. So they can all do this all from the Salesforce native mobile app. It mentions that the photos and videos should be accessible from Salesforce. So they're just going to upload these as files into Salesforce. That way they can share them in there. You can be accessed from within the system. Like I mentioned, the preliminary estimate is just going to be a quote, and then they can send a copy of the quote to the customer via email. So they can just use, we can have quote templates, different templates for each language. And then the email quote quick action on the quote to send the quote to the customer. It also mentions they want to capture GPS information, and this will be done through a custom Lightning Web Component using a JavaScript library to get the location GPS coordinates. This is a little bit tricky. This will use an Apex class to update the latitude and longitude on the location associated with this customer, that specific location object. Oops. And we need to use the REST API here because the geography field is a composite field. So this needs to be updated. The actual individual latitude and longitude fields need to be updated, and this can only be done through the API. So I'm suggesting we just use the REST API. I'm going to call out using Apex with the Lightning Web Component. So once the estimate is created, this allows the customer to access Salesforce. So we will write some Apex to create we can actually just create the customer accounts manually. I don't think it says, and it activates the process. So I'm proposing Apex to create the community access and send an email to the customer. That way they can log in, and then that customer estimate is shared with them using a sharing set where the contact account equals the customer estimate account. And it mentions they need to be able to collaborate with the system specialist. So I'm proposing that we'll just use chatter groups for collaboration, and also uploading files and attaching them to this estimate object. And like I mentioned, we're going to pull data from the primary quote into that customer estimate. So the system specialist will create design plans with the custom design tools. So these plans are going to have to be accessible by the customer from Salesforce. So this will just be the system specialist creating the files and then saving them and uploading them to Salesforce on the customer record on their, whether they're on the installation or the estimate. They can upload them either place and share them with the customer. So the system specialist can just send an email to let the customer know that the documents are available. And they can also share them through the chatter as well for collaboration. And then once the customer approves, they will e-sign and update the most updated estimate, which I'm proposing will use SDocs for them to digitally sign a copy of the quote. And then an order and contract will be created once this quote's finalized and signed. So then the order information is then sent to the ERP to create the sales order. And then that's when they can proceed with installation. The customer also will provide some financial data. So I'm proposing we store this in a separate object because there's some visibility and security considerations for this. The financial data will be associated with the location, but only the person working on the customer account will be able to see this data. So, and then an approval process will be initiated. So we'll just use the out of the box approval process, and the manager will have to approve the customer for the work if the installation cost is high. So we'll use that as our criteria in our process, which is the installation cost on the order. Mentions customers should be able to use their Facebook, Twitter, or LinkedIn. This is just social sign-on, like I mentioned before, OpenID Connect. Contracting installation. The contractor records are created and managed in the ERP, and that's the batch job we'll use to send those back to Salesforce. And then we'll have a custom Apex web service that will be called by MuleSoft to create or update the contractor records and create any access to the community if they are new contractors. And they will just be using native credentials to sign in. The system specialist will add a contractor onto the installation record and also onto the custom estimate because they'll need to be able to access all the customer installation information, design documents, estimates, which is the customer estimates. We'll create a sharing set to share that data with them where the contractor account equals the installer account on the customer estimate record. And also the photos and videos that are being shared in Chatter, we'll add them to the Chatter space using the Connect API. That's more just about the collaboration. And then once the contractor approves the design, they will indicate their acceptance. So I'm thinking we could just give them a quick action on the customer estimate to check a box that indicates that the contractor has approved, and this will call SDocs to create a contract to be signed. So a contracting agreement needs to be created where the contractor signs online, and then we're just going to store this in Salesforce so we can store that right on the contractor's account record. The system specialist will be notified of the acceptance and signature, at which point they can do the final review with the customer and place the order for the required devices. And that will happen through the ERP since that is the order management system. So the order is created in Salesforce, flagged as complete. This uses the integration I explained before to send the order to the ERP system, which then creates the sales order for fulfillment. So detailed order data should be viewable or accessible from Salesforce. So I'm proposing we'll just use an external object to look up to each account to see the sales order data in the ERP. ERP will update Salesforce through the point of arrival. So that means as the order equipment is going through different points and finally arrives at the customer's location, that these order statuses are going to be continually updated back into Salesforce. And then once the order arrives at the customer location, will just be another status on the order. The system specialist and contractor will be notified by SMS and email. So I'll just have a record triggered flow on the order. And once it reaches that status, we'll send an email and we'll send an SMS using SMS 360. And I'm proposing to use that just as a simple app exchange app that we can use within Flow because there's no justification for digital engagement, which is a different way of using SMS within Salesforce. It's more for customers to communicate with service via SMS. What you can send SMS is just not the right use case here for only sending SMS to customers. Each device is added to the customer installation. So this is what I was talking about before, where during the installation, each device is going to be added on the installation record and is connected online to the appropriate monitoring system. And this automatically is supposed to automatically create a record in Salesforce for the device. So that is where I am creating the asset records, and they're associated with the customer location. So since that is going to be, there's just going to be too many records, we need to virtualize that. It's too much data for Salesforce to handle. So once the installation is final, Salesforce is updated by the system specialist, and then information from the installation is sent to the ERP system, and that's another integration that I talked about before. Then we're to scheduled maintenance. So we'll create regular scheduled maintenance. And this is actually created by the system specialist. So I think I had this support as being owners of the maintenance schedule, but I think the system specialist probably should be the owners of this, since they're going to determine the schedule. Once the installation is complete, well, actually it's managed by the support center. So no, never mind. I'll leave it as support as the owners, because, oh yeah, and then this is where it mentioned that each customer location is serviced twice a year. So that was part of my calculation here. So this is our batch job for the scheduled maintenance being 1 week away. And once the scheduled maintenance is complete, the system specialist updates Salesforce using their mobile device. This can be a quick action to say maintenance complete, and then this will fire an integration to update the status of the service order in the ERP real time. That's one of those fire and forget platform events. And then issues can be raised from the monitoring systems, or created by customer contacts, or created by support reps. So the monitoring systems can actually make real-time API calls into Salesforce. So this would go through MuleSoft, since that's our integration layer. And MuleSoft, everything should go through MuleSoft because it provides a lot of capabilities, such as queuing and being able to send to multiple systems, and logging and retries, and it avoids the point-to-point integration. So I prefer not to have that point-to-point integration from the other systems to Salesforce. So when certain events occur, it will send in these event messages through the ESB, and then Salesforce will be updated when certain events happen. So these events should create tasks for the support representatives to call the customer. So we'll create a case and then create a task associated to the case for the support rep to call the customer. And we can just assign these cases to a queue. Support rep can then pull it off the queue. And then issues raised by customer contacts, they can log into the community and log a case, or they can do it from the mobile publisher community app that they can on their mobile phone. So they'll be able to create a case right from there. And then the devices are fitted with barcodes. So they mentioned they want them to be able to take a picture of the barcode. So we'll create a custom Lightning Web component with a JavaScript library to scan the barcode and relate it to the asset. So we'll just open up the mobile app using that barcode, and there'll be a field on the asset that will associate with that barcode. So issues submitted need to be routed to an appropriate service representative. This is omni-channel using skills-based routing, will be depending on their geography and expertise and the skills that are assigned to them. And then if any maintenance or repair work is needed, the support reps, they will create a maintenance task. And then this is what creates a service order in the ERP, but they need to have real-time feedback for this integration. So this is a request reply call out. We'll have a quick action on the asset that will create the maintenance work order on the asset, which will then launch a screen flow. This will call an invocable Apex method to make the request reply call out to the ESB, and ERP will send that to the ERP, and then the ERP will send back an immediate success or failure to be displayed to the user in the flow. And then for customers that are calling in through issues that are raised. Support representatives can create issues. They're just going to be able to create cases right in the service console manually, and then they can determine if maintenance or repair work needs to be scheduled as previously stated, and they'll just create a service appointment if necessary. So each customer location will produce 20 issues per year. This was my calculation for number of cases. So there's 200,000 locations and then 20 cases per year. So that's where my my data growth came from there. And then only about half will require work orders. So as you can see, work orders at some point probably will start to get to that 5 million threshold. So we'll need to think about some archival strategy there down the road. Here's some data migration that will have to happen. Like I mentioned before, the CRM systems being retired will have to take data from the last 5 years, migrate into Salesforce. So this is for the leads, lead information, except for they also are in ERP, so we'll have the ETL do some logic to check to make sure that the lead is not an existing customer. If they are, then they'll be migrated to Salesforce. All customer location and contact data from the ERP needs to be replicated into Salesforce. So we'll have to take into consideration our order of loading the data. We'll have to load the accounts first and then the contacts related to the accounts. We'll have to then load the locations and match them up to the accounts. We'll have to use some external ID linking here. And then we also want to logically link the records between the two systems. So we can make use of an external ID there for linking between Salesforce and ERP. The last 3 years, we'll want to go through some data cleansing and deduplication efforts. So we'll want to stage the data into a staging database. We can then cleanse the data, deduplicate, make sure that it is ready to be loaded. We'll load it into a Salesforce sandbox to be tested and verified first. And I have a diagram of the different environments we have, so we can load it into a staging database where the data can be verified before it's pushed to production. So the last 3 years of sales order and service order data also needs to be replicated into Salesforce. So this will come after the accounts are loaded into Salesforce. So I actually had us virtualizing the sales order data, but that's not necessary since that will only be if we want to retrieve anything older than 3 years. So we're actually going to replicate the last 3 years of sales and service. So the service will go into cases. Sales orders will be just into the Salesforce orders. We'll have to bring that in and then associate it to the account using the external object. The external ID, sorry, link where it mentions logically linking the records, we'll use the external ID. And then all devices from the 3 monitoring systems need to be replicated into Salesforce. So that is where we're going to virtualize the assets and then link them to the account. And mentions that some customers and have device data in more than one monitoring system, so they could have multiple devices. And we'll have to associate all of those to the same account. And then all design documents currently residing on the system specialist desktops will need to be migrated into Salesforce as files attached to the customer records. That way they'll be available. So the visibility and accessibility. System specialists can view and edit all customer installed system data for their own customers. This is just record ownership. The system specialists can view all customer and install system data for other specialist customers. So we can use sharing roles, criteria-based sharing roles, and then within their local this is the role hierarchy. So and sharing roles. So we'll share. Except for financial data. So that's when we have a lookup relationship and won't share data they do not own. All managers will be able to view and edit all customer and installed system data. This is also just roll up through the hierarchy. So within their respective areas, including financial data. So we'll share financial data through the hierarchy. Contractors should be able to view and edit data for customer locations to which they've been assigned. So we're going to add them to the customer, the customer installation record, and then use a sharing set with a contact.account equals installation.account. So on the installation record, and they will not have access to the financial data. Customer contacts can view and edit their own customer contact install system data. That's a sharing set with contact account equals installation account. And also we'll give them access to the installation object, and also the customer estimate object is also the sharing set with their contact account equals the customer estimate account. There are certain customers with multiple customer accounts and locations. We'll use an external account hierarchy here. It mentions that primary customer contacts should be able to see all location and subordinate data across all related accounts, so they'll be at the top of the hierarchy. And then support reps should be able to see all data for their geography and criteria-based share rule here, except for the financial data. And then for reporting, I'm suggesting that we use Tableau CRM. Support reps need to be able to Support reps, system specialists, and managers need to be able to run reports on sales activity and schedules for all customers that they have access to. So it'll also be controlled by Salesforce security, which Tableau CRM can utilize. Also, support reps, system specialists, and managers should be able to run reports showing number of device monitoring events for all customers they have access to. So it's interesting because there's device monitoring events in these other 3 systems, but because we're using Tableau CRM, we can pull data from multiple data sources. Also, managers will be able to run ad hoc trending reports. So they can also do that with Tableau CRM. For monitoring activity for various periods of time, there'll just be filters on the report, customer type, geography, installed device. And then customer contacts need to be able to run reports showing issues and their status for all issues they have access to. I just have them running a simple report in the community since they have the customer community plus. And then they would like a report to be able to be run live from the public website, showing number of monitoring events and installations for US and Canada. So I'm going to create a custom Apex web service using Apex without sharing that can be called by the web page to display this data. And also we can retrieve monitoring events from the external systems using, which will be wrapped in this Apex web service and called through the ESB. And then project development requirements should be in both English and French, which is multi-language. They have geographically separate teams, which is a risk identified, and also the ERP teams operating with a great deal of autonomy. So I'm proposing we do this in an agile project management methodology. We'll have to use more of a waterfall methodology for the integration and for the MuleSoft development, since that we're going to be greatly dependent on these integrations with all these different systems. The IT teams have access to only one development and one test environment for each of their respective systems, so that also is going to be a risk as well. They want to simultaneously release the completed solution for all regions within 4 months. And so that's why I'm recommending we're going to use Agile and just push out all the releases at once. But there's also issues with project priorities, technical design issues, and team management. So we'll have a center of excellence to oversee the entire project, an architecture review board that will oversee all the technical requests, and those requests will be put into JIRA. The architecture review board will decide if it's feasible or not, and then push that off to the project teams that can then scope the work and decide what goes into each iteration of the agile process. Each developer will have their own Scratch org, where they'll use VS Code, ESLint, PMD for code quality, SFDX plugins, and then they'll do their own Apex and unit tests within here, and also use mocks and stubs for when they need to make calls to other systems. So before MuleSoft is even ready, before the endpoints are ready, they can use mocks and stubs to make those call outs. Also proposing a dev int box for the code being pushed from each developer to be merged in DevInt, so we can do a smoke test, test the build, we can integrate the code here, and if anything breaks the build, a message will be sent back to the developer that the build failed. And then they'll make a pull request for the code to be merged to develop branch, which will then be overlooked by someone doing a code review and decide if the code is good to be released, which will then be pushed to QA and UAT and time's up. And then we'll branch to a release branch from there. And then we'll then push to a master branch, which will then, when we're ready to release, we'll push to the master branch, which will push the code to both staging and prod. So we have different testing activities going on in each environment. So we have smoke testing in the DevInt, functional regression testing in QA. I'm also proposing we use Selenium. I didn't really see much about QA resources in here. So Selenium can help with some of those testing efforts with any lack of QA. This will be a partial sandbox. UAT will be the user acceptance testing, and this will be all the business and functional testing. We can also set up Selenium testing in here as well. This is a partial sandbox, and we'll do our end-to-end integration, performance, and load testing in the full staging sandbox. This is where we can set up load runner to do those performance tests, but always contact Salesforce 2 weeks ahead, make sure that you're letting them know what kind of load tests you're going to do and what your expected throughput will be, so they can plan for that. And then we can also use another full sandbox for user training. And this will be a reflection of prod. And then we can have a hot fix environment where if anything is wrong in production, we can push code to a hot fix branch, change it here, push it back to master, and then we can release that to production when ready. And we're always going to be syncing our master back to develop whenever our releases are stable. And we can also tag our Jira tickets that we're going to use for Agile with the stories and features that are being pushed into GitHub. And that's it. Thank you. Yeah.
So you said you have something called the customer code, right? Where you copy the code from the main code to the customer code, is it?
Yeah.
Okay. So are you going to be including code line items as well?
I don't, it didn't mention, it just mentioned that they wanted to give the estimate data to the customer. It didn't mention any line items, so I was just going to show the aggregated data.
So it'll be like a total price.
Yes. Yeah.
So what happens, if customer is not happy with the code, or can you the process? What's going to happen?
They could. It didn't mention any automation around that. They could, be emailing with their account rep and say, "I don't like how the quote looks," and then the account rep, the specialist would then go back and revise the quote, make that the primary quote, which will then update the customer quote for them to look at in the community, and they can just, they can say, "Hey, log back in and check this data." There wasn't any automation I saw that needed to be built around that, so I wasn't going to bring it in if it wasn't necessary.
So if there's a change, you'll be overwriting the same record?
Yes, in the customer quote. It's just going to be showing the most up-to-date information on the estimate. So
okay. So on the data model, Melissa, you have shown account to account location as a MD, master detail.
Yeah.
Any other master details that you are missing or not highlighted here?
I am not proposing any other master detail. That's an out of the box lookup. There might be some for the out of the box objects, but opportunity, I think opportunity line item. I think or it acts like a master detail. It's not quite master detail. Let's see.
So opportunity and opportunity line item is master details, or is it lookup?
We had the discussion before. I think it's like really a lookup, but it kind of behaves like a master detail.
Okay.
But
What
I'm
about
not putting any other, I actually have missed my lookup here. These are lookups as well. Between between installation and installation maintenance, that's just gonna be a lookup. Trying to
what
think.
about quote and quote line items?
That might be a master detail, but Salesforce doesn't give you information on either out of the box. They don't give you a lot of information on the out of the box. You actually would have to go look up the objects, but on their data models, they don't really specify. It's really the most concern is the any custom objects you're bringing into the system, what kind of relationships you're creating and proposing, and then to make sure that the security.
But what's about the code security?
What was that?
What's about the code security between opportunity and code? How you manage the security over there? How you make sure? How you make sure?
It didn't mention anything specific to that stuff. I mean, I would just probably make that private, just is a good best practice. Make these objects private, only viewable. We'll roll up to the hierarchies for reporting purposes. So we'll make opportunities and quotes private.
So Melissa, on the one of the sharing sets you mentioned, you're going to be using installation.account.
Yeah.
Where is it in the data model?
Right here. Over here, there's an installation object.
Yeah, but is there another lookup from here to the account?
Yeah, there's a lookup missing here. Actually, well, it's trying to think because the installations. Oh yeah, you're talking about for the contractors.
Yeah, in the visibility requirement, I think number 5.
Yeah, there'll be a lookup from installation to the account for that. Yeah.
So what account is that? Does it represent?
The contractor account. So we'll have the installer account being represented on the installation object. Oh, the customer contacts. Yeah. So that will be the customer account. So we'll have both the customer and the contractor account on here.
So you'll have 2 lookups.
Well, yeah.
Who will be owner of this object?
What was that?
Who will be the owner of this object?
The specialist.
Okay. So Mirza, you mentioned that during the maintenance schedule, those records are going to be owned by the call center.
Yes.
So if you have hundreds of people in the call center, who's going to be the owner?
Whoever, so they're going to be, so that was something I wasn't really clear on. It said that the specialists are going to actually create the maintenance records, but support is going to manage it. Let me see. Let me go back to that. So I kind of went back and forth on that. So it really could be assigned to a queue. And I think I mentioned that as part of the process, the maintenance would go in a queue and a support rep would pick it up.
So work orders can support queues as owner.
What was that?
You'll be assigning the work orders to a queue, or
the installation
records
appointment. Yes. That's what will go in the, I think that's what will go in the queue. No queue, but the queue, try to think, can the queues have service appointments? I don't remember. I have to look that up. To what objects the queue can own.
Okay. And Melissa, you said you are enabling FSL, but you said you're not using the FSL, I was not very clear.
Right, I'm not using FSL because that is like, that's a whole different set of features and licenses, but in Salesforce, in order to use work orders, you have to actually enable FSL, but if you don't have any FSL licenses, it gives you access to work orders and some other objects.
Okay. Some question on the integration. Anybody have any other questions on the data model? Yeah, if not, can you go to the integrations slide, Melissa?
Yep. This one.
Yeah. So you do send order information to the ESP, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So your order has order line items, right? Can you explain to me how we're sending the order line items?
Yes. Sorry. So we'll send the order data. So we'll send a platform event to MuleSoft. And MuleSoft will come back and query those order line items from the order and send those to the ERP along with the order information.
So there'll be a callback to get the line items.
Yes. So MuleSoft will call back into Salesforce. Yeah, to grab those line items.
Okay. For which integrations are you doing that?
So Salesforce is going to create a fire and forget platform event to MuleSoft. MuleSoft will then receive that event and then call back into Salesforce to query for the data using the order number. That will be called, they'll use the Salesforce adapter, MuleSoft adapter.
And what should be the pattern for this when MuleSoft call back in Salesforce?
Remote call in. But really it's just, yeah, it's not really calling in, it's using, you can just write SOAP with the adapter, MuleSoft. But yeah, that's the pattern, it's remote call in.
Okay. Samantha, on page number 6, integration number third point, it says the status of the ERP service order is updated on a real-time basis. I think on this integration you use fire and forget.
Nope, that's number 3. So ERP makes a remote call in through the ESP to send the order status updates to Salesforce.
So under schedule maintenance, third scenario, third requirement.
Which one?
Under schedule maintenance, page number 6. Yeah, third scenario, last one. Yeah, the last point.
Yep.
So for that, you're using yeah.
That is Salesforce to ESB. I believe that this requirement is my integration number 7. The service order in the ERP is updated when the scheduled maintenance is complete.
Okay, let's go to Miss on monitoring and issue management, page number 7. 1B.
1B. Okay.
Yeah. So this one we're using which integration number is that?
This is monitoring systems can make certain events occur. Okay, when certain events are raised, I think that is number 8, remote calling through the ESP. So when events occur, we'll create cases in Salesforce related to the asset.
Okay. So you're using a remote calling for this one. On the other one, you're using a request reply.
From the monitoring systems, nope, they're both remote calling. It depends on what direction you're going in. Yeah. The other systems calling into Salesforce using remote call in. Salesforce to the external systems, either request reply or fire and forget.
Yeah, sorry, on go to 2D. That's what I'm talking about, 2D. Sorry. Yeah.
2D. Okay, so when maintenance or repair work is needed, they create a maintenance task, which I mentioned there'll be, this calls Apex. This is an invocable Apex method to make the request reply call out. So this is integration number 9. because we need to get an immediate success or failure response for the user.
So for this one as well, are you going to be using line items as well? Or just a order?
It didn't mention anything. It needs to create a service order. So I'm assuming maintenance probably doesn't have line items. I don't know if you're familiar with maintenance contracts, but so the initial order would actually have line items because it would probably include products and maintenance, but just maintenance alone, I don't think it would need line items, but it didn't specify, so I'm not suggesting any line items be created.
Okay. All right. Anyone, any questions?
On number 8, where we are creating cases on external system, the remote core enthusiast B1,
Yeah.
how do you make sure the cases are not duplicated?
So when events, so there would be a case created. So you're saying if multiple same events?
Yeah.
I would think you'd want to create a case for each event because it could be, I don't know how you would even know if it would be the same event.
Okay, another question is, are you going to use the standard REST endpoint, or are you going to create a custom endpoint for this one?
It's through the ESB, so through MuleSoft, through the connector.
Okay, so you're thinking because there are 2 records we need to be created at least. One is case, and then the assets, right?
The assets already exist. It's going to relate the case to the asset. So we'll have that. We'll have that asset ID known through a lookup in the ESB. So when it's sending an event for that asset, it will send along the asset ID.
Okay. Cool. And also for the platform event, how are you going to trigger the platform event?
We could trigger that through
number 1.
Oh, so yeah. So we can trigger platform events through record trigger flow that can write the platform event.
Okay, so I think that's all my questions relate to integration.
Can you go on slide number 4, licensing?
Yeah.
And open the first requirement on the business section. No, it is down in the business section.
Oh, business
Yep.
process requirements.
Yep. Yeah, the number 1. So you mentioned you will use web to lead and omnichannel, right?
Yeah.
Can you read your licensing and just make sure it is right, licensing are right?
For the support reps?
No, for the system specialist.
Well, they're not actually using omnichannel.
But how you route the leads then?
So the leads get routed to a support rep, not the system specialist.
Okay.
Melissa, sorry, are you done with the question?
Yep, I'm done.
Melissa, you said you will be using MuleSoft for both ESB and as a ESB and ATL too, right?
Yeah.
Can you explain to me on data migration number 1, how you're handling that through MuleSoft?
So we'll make a call back to the ERP systems to customer, so to make sure that they aren't already existing customers. So yeah, so we'll have to, so that's a 2-step process. So we'll have to bring the leads into MuleSoft. MuleSoft in the process, in the orchestration, MuleSoft will have to make a call out to the ERP system, check to see using some type of fuzzy matching or something to see if this customer, or there possibly is a link between the CRM and ERP Maybe if the customer got created in the ERP, there's something in the CRM to give that customer ID. Maybe we can go off of that. It's a little vague here, so we don't know. So we'll just have to use criteria, whether it's an ID in the CRM system for the ERP or some fuzzy matching like first name, last name, address, to see if they actually exist in the ERP system. And then if they don't, we'll bring that late in.
So for every record that's going to come from CRM, are you going to do a search in ERP?
Yeah, through an orchestration. Yeah, you can connect to both the CRM and ERP in the same orchestration.
Yeah, so during the migration, so you take this CRM systems that you have,
Yeah.
and for each record of the CRM system, you are going to do a lookup in the ERP.
So 5 years of leads, let's see. I think you said there's about 5,000 leads that come in per year. That's really only 25. That doesn't sound right, but that's what it said. So it said there's about 5,000 leads. Oh, that's per month. Sorry. It's about 60,000 per year for the last 5 years. I mean, that's not a huge number of records to do a lookup, to do a match on each record. If it was a larger volume, I would suggest, I'm not a MuleSoft developer. I just know that we want MuleSoft to do that work and not Salesforce. So we want to be matching before we bring the data into Salesforce. So I don't know if you can do it in bulk, but for that volume of records, I don't see an issue with calling each record, calling to the ERP for each record to try to find a match.
Sorry, one follow-up question. I don't know if it's question or clarification. How can you compare the using ESB versus ETL here?
How can you what?
Didn't you think of using ETL for this process?
Yeah, that's what I said. We're going to use ETL.
I thought you said, okay, using MuleSoft as ETL process.
Yeah, I'm just proposing to use MuleSoft as the ETL tool.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
We really can do ETL, but if we're going to get MuleSoft, why not just get its ETL as well?
Yeah.
On this same slide, do you think we can enable AD as single sign-on for the systems that we have USDM internal systems?
It mentions that it has a single sign-on and that they're using Active Directory.
Where does it mention?
Go back to it. I think it's in the system section.
Are you talking about 3D?
3. Current systems. 3. Single sign-on has been implemented for the monitoring systems for internal users. Yeah.
But it doesn't mention about anything about the AD.
Somewhere in here it does mention Active Directory. So let me do a search real quick.
Yeah, so it's possible that they have Active Directory, and it's possible they also have IDP in the current system.
Yeah, it didn't say.
It's 6P.
So it enterprise-wide Active Directory for management of internal users across all systems. That's what it says. So.
But do you think we can enable AD as single sign-on?
Well, I'm going to use Identity Connect to use single sign-on for Salesforce specifically. I don't know how they're doing it specifically. I don't know what the AD. I'm just showing that that's their identity store. They have single sign-on between these systems. It doesn't specify what they're using as their IDP.
Okay, on the DMZ layer.
It's likely ADFS, but I don't know. That's an assumption.
But if it is ADFS, why you need Salesforce identity then?
Well, see, I don't know. So I'm proposing we can use Identity Connect since I don't know that.
Okay.
It's just a very simple solution to use Active Directory credentials to sign on, use single sign-on with Salesforce, and automatically provision and deprovision. So ADFS, you wouldn't get that automatic provisioning and deprovisioning.
Okay, on the DMZ layer, how you enable that MuleSoft will talk with USDM?
You'll have to open up some ports through the DMZ.
So do you think it's a good idea to open all the ports for UTM and all the internal applications to the public? Because
No,
MuleSoft wants to.
No, this would not be to the public. This is all internal.
So MuleSoft is also internal?
Yes. It's in the
So-
cloud, but it's being used for internal purposes. We're not exposing MuleSoft to the public at all.
So if it is internal, then how could Salesforce start with MuleSoft?
You have to open up specific ports for MuleSoft to connect with internal systems to use MuleSoft Cloud. I don't know exactly what those ports are, but that's how you use it. If you don't want to use on-premise MuleSoft and you want to use MuleSoft Cloud, you have to open up certain ports for it to connect. Or it might be even a VPN that you can use. I'll have to look into that a little bit more. Thank you on the MuleSoft to on-premise security. Been a little bit since I've looked at it, but I think they do like a VPN.
So anyone has any other questions on this one?
Yes.
Otherwise, okay, go ahead.
No, sorry, I have other questions. I'll try to do this one.
Yeah, on the system landscape, I had another question. So on the your archival solution, you are using Heroku Connect to
Yeah.
sync up the data between the two systems, right?
Yeah.
What do you mean by a sync engine?
So that's just the Heroku Connect sync engine. So that's the architecture of Heroku for Connect. So you have to use Heroku Connect to sync with Salesforce. It can pull the data from Salesforce. Actually, it can go bi-directionally, but we'll pull the data to connect tables, and then we'll use a store procedure to then archive that data so that we can expose it as an external object using OData.
Okay. Where do you define the external object in Salesforce or on Heroku side?
What was that? The external object?
Yeah. Where do you define that?
You define them in Salesforce.
And so what's the box under Heroku box and external object? Is it a Heroku external object or a Salesforce external object?
Well, you can set them up in Salesforce to be connecting to the external objects in Heroku. It's just one external object. So you have objects in Heroku and you expose them as external objects in Salesforce.
Okay. And your external objects are these the LDV objects, right? That's what you're going to archive?
Yes.
Okay. And your archive objects are devices and cases?
Yeah.
So devices, Melissa, are you going to archive devices from, like, what is the criteria for archiving devices?
I think it's just going to be immediately or maybe daily, because though that data volume is maybe monthly, because it's showing that there'll be currently 10 million devices in the system for all customers. So actually, it mentioned we do have to bring the data in from the other systems, so that we would bring that data directly into Salesforce and into Heroku in the data migration, and then any new assets that get created, they would get created in the asset object more as like a staging, and then maybe every month we push them out to Heroku so we don't run into any issues.
So for the data migration, it says all devices from 3 monitoring systems needs to be replicated into Salesforce.
Yeah,
Are you bringing that?
that's what I just was mentioning, that we'll bring them into Heroku and not actually, so we'll replicate them in Salesforce by bringing them into Heroku and exposing them as an external object.
So in one of the questions that I think Cindy asked about MuleSoft making a call to make a case, and in the case you said you're going to have a link to the asset. So the asset is in Heroku.
Yeah.
Can MuleSoft your ESB tool can link up the two records.
Yep.
So adapter can search external objects.
Well, they're going to be external objects in Salesforce. So yes, you can query external objects in Salesforce. And there'll be a lookup. It's on the data model.
Okay.
Actually, I'm missing the lookup between the case and asset.
So what's the type of the lookup between?
Just be a lookup. You can just use a regular Salesforce ID as a lookup. It'll be a lookup field.
No, from the Heroku asset table to Salesforce.
Yeah, a lookup. There's three kind of lookups. There's lookup, there's external lookup, and there's indirect lookup. And I'm just going to use the Salesforce ID. Therefore, I'm going to use the regular lookup field.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have no questions.
A few. Great.
Slide number 5, your role hierarchy choice. So then open and page number 2.
Yeah.
First for the support rep. So do you think your role hierarchy is right for the support rep?
For the support rep?
Yep.
I'm not modeling these 3 service centers, so they're just reporting to managers in their respective offices. So yes.
So how many offices do we have in US? And
There's
how
2.
you manage?
Yeah, but I'm kind of breaking them down by region. So there
Yeah,
could be like
but
Eastern US, Western US. That's why I wrote both US and Canada here. That's just how the general hierarchy would look in each region.
perfect. But let's take example of Canada. Assume we have 10 office managers inside Canada. Okay. So do you think your role hierarchy is right? 10 different offices we have in Canada. So
Yeah.
which means we have office 1, office 2, office 3.
Yeah.
But how your support rep will work, because it is clearly said we just have one service center in Canada.
Oh yeah. So yeah. So they would really be overseeing more than one office, you're saying. So maybe we want to have well, the support reps still will work in an office.
No, they are working in the service center, right?
Service centers, yeah. Well, yeah. Okay, so they actually probably wouldn't be working in these offices. So yeah, I probably want to have the service centers separate from the office.
Okay. On slide number 4, you mentioned about the customer, primary customer. We are using customer community plus, right?
Yeah.
I did not see that on the role hierarchy.
Oh yeah, I think I left them off.
Yeah, that is another question.
Yeah, they would be they would probably report to the support reps.
Okay. This is all I have.
Yeah, I have a few clarifying questions.
Sure.
Do you want to ask Peter? You had some questions in the chat.
Yeah, I need to drop out now. So yeah, just put it in the questions. Maybe there's no similar ones. I mean, my first one will be like around routing. What type of omni-channel routing you're using?
Oh, skills-based omnichannel routing.
And you routing yet to skills-based, yeah. And
there's some skills and some based on geography.
And who will be assigned to?
These support reps.
Because during the presentation you mentioned something about groups.
Uh,
I think she meant queues. Geography
yeah, I
queues.
thought I said queues.
Okay, maybe I misread. Was queues. So, can you how does skill-based routing will work with the queue?
How does what worked with the queue? Omnichannel?
Skill-based routing will work with the queue.
So you set up your skills-based routing, and depending on criteria, you can assign cases or even leads to specific queues. So there's assignment rules that you set up.
Okay.
Can you walk us through the detailed steps with how skill-based routing works?
So you would assign skills to different users, and based on the user skills. So when something comes in, you can check the skills of the users, and then it can determine what queues. So if you have a high priority queue, you can see if that user has a skill that is high priority, and then assign to the queue that contains those users.
How you check the skills, and how you mention how you link those skills with the queues?
So, well, it wouldn't be linked. It would be in the assignment rule. And then if it meets the criteria, then you assign to that queue.
Okay.
So, okay, I'm still unclear, but I need to drop. And just one final question before I drop is what there's a requirement to upload the files. You said you were gonna use the standard Salesforce files to upload the pictures and videos.
Yeah.
So considering that, let's take an assumption that each file can have like 100 MB, because it also includes videos, yeah?
Yeah.
What would be your approach there?
So I would suggest archiving those off platform to an external system when space is not, there's no longer any space. So I calculated that there's 7,000 gigs of storage. I don't feel like we're going to run into any storage issues. And if we do, then we can look at off-platform storage to archive those.
But how you upload those files inside Salesforce using Salesforce mobile app?
Yeah.
If the file is greater than 100 MB.
Oh, right. Where does it say? Does it say that it's over 100?
No, it says it's video.
So there's one here where it says up to 100 megabytes. Oh no, that's different video. Where's the video? Yeah, if they have
It
a
is,
video,
it is
so
for it. In the sales and design for it.
Let me look. Why can't I find it?
Go up in the first section of the business process requirement. Yep, over here.
Okay,
for
A.
it. Yep.
Yeah, they just wouldn't be able to upload if it's over. I think it says like 10 minutes is kind of like the amount of time that they would be able to upload for a video. So if it's over that, they wouldn't be able to upload it.
So assume this is not 10 minutes, assume the limit is 100 MB in Salesforce mobile app. So what should be your recommendation over here?
I'm saying that it doesn't say the size. So as long as it's within the 100 MB limit, they should be able to upload them into Salesforce using the mobile app.
Okay, so assuming here that the clients come back and says that the reps need to upload 4K videos, and this is not supported. It's
Yeah,
over.
I wouldn't suggest using Salesforce Mobile. That's not a requirement. So, the file upload limit is 100 megabytes. So we do have to take that into consideration when giving them the mobile app. But if there was a requirement, which there isn't for something larger than that, I'm making the assumption here that we're going to fit within this 100 megabyte limit because there's nothing else stated. We're just going to go with the Salesforce mobile app. Down the road, if they say, hey, we want to upload larger videos, we're going to have to go with maybe like a custom or hybrid, app to allow for that. And then I don't even know if I would suggest storing those in Salesforce either. And then we'll maybe look at an external storage solution.
And if there will be external storage solution, how we would expose this data to Salesforce?
Like something like Box through the API.
Okay.
The Box API, sorry, to clarify.
Sure. Thank you very much. Drop off now. Thank you.
One quick question I had, Melissa. You talked about storing the lat long and using a REST API to do that. Can you explain a little bit more on that?
Yeah, so we'll have a Lightning Web component that will, using a JavaScript library that will grab the current location using the mobile app. And we'll have Apex, I kind of walked through that. We'll have an Apex class that will have to call the REST API to store those on the associated object that they're capturing the coordinates for, the location object. So they'll have to put the latitude in one field and the longitude in another field.
Okay. And you also talked about usage of the Connect API. I missed that part. Can you elaborate on that as well?
Oh, for chatter? Yeah, we can automatically add the contractors to the chatter workspace using the Connect API.
Sorry, I didn't get that part. You would do what?
So add the contractors, automatically give the contractors access to the chatter space through Connect API. It's a REST API.
Okay, so help me understand this. Like when the contractors gets access to the customer, would you need like why would you really need to use Connect API explicitly? Would they not have access to the chatter capability out of the box?
They have to be added to the specific chatter collaboration workspace.
Oh, so you're automating the process. Nobody's like adding them to a group or something.
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
So they're done?
Yeah, I don't have anything else.
Yeah, just a few clarifications. I don't know if it's questions. So one quick question is even we asked, how would we virtualize the asset data, which is an external object? Because we only want to show specific customers' data to specific users, right?
So it depends on what customer data. Which requirement is that?
The asset requirement, the asset object. I think you mentioned that you're going to put it as external object, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. How are you going to make it visualize to the support rep or specialist?
So yeah, you're talking about installed system data. So this would include assets. Yeah, you can't set up security on external objects. So that's if the assets are. I was assuming the installation was what was meant here. But if asset falls under that, then there's an issue with the security on the asset object. But the asset will be associated to the account. So they really would only be seeing the assets that have the lookups to the accounts for their customers, but still it's not 100% secure solution. And you'd want to turn off searching on the external objects.
So how would so what is the plan to?
So if you went to an account and
Mhm.
the external asset object has a lookup to the account, you will see a related list of assets on that account. You only see the assets associated to your account. You'll only be shown the data associated to the records you have access to. That's how it works, but you'd have to not let them search for any other records.
So your plan is to just turn off this first search capability?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll move on. There's one clarification. I think when you talked about documents, right? Signature documents. Can you go back to that? Can you go to that requirement? So I think it's not a question. I think I won't confirm what I heard. So you mentioned that we could use SDocs for e-signature. Is that correct?
Yeah.
But are you sure of that? I thought SDocs was only for generating the documents.
Oh, yeah, for generate, there's an also, I believe there's e-sig, it's another part of SDocs for doing the
S-sign?
Yeah, S-sign, sorry, yeah, so I forgot to mention that we'll use S-sign for the actual signature. So we'll use SDocs to generate the documents and use S-sign for the actual signature.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's all. I was going back to that. I know I would like others also to confirm. Do you think that turning off search for external object would be enough, or you think about a Canvas app or something?
Yeah. So Canvas app for exposing external data is another option. I didn't mention, it just mentioned that the order, yeah. So for orders being accessible through Salesforce, yeah, it's definitely, Canvas is definitely an option there, a more secure option.
Okay.
For them to be able to log in and search, because it will go, if they already have security set up in the other system, then they'll only see what they're able to see.
Yeah, I think that's all. Thank you.
Thanks.
I guess that's all.
We are
Yeah.
45 minutes in asking questions.
Do you want to discuss the scenario now?
It's almost 2 hours. Do you want to continue to discuss, or you are tired? You want to rest?
Yeah, I'm tired. I prefer to just discuss now if you want to discuss.
My ideas are not directly related